The most dangerous enemies in your life are rarely the ones who openly oppose you. Open hostility is easy to recognize. When someone openly dislikes you, they reveal their position, and that gives you the advantage of preparation. The true threat comes from those who applaud you with their hands, while secretly wishing for your downfall in their hearts. Human nature has mastered the art of disguise. People have learned that open jealousy carries social consequences, so they hide it beneath smiles, compliments, and carefully chosen words. If you wish to understand power, you must first understand that people often reveal themselves through contradictions rather than declarations. Pay close attention to the people who seem enthusiastic every time you remain exactly where you are. They encourage your comfort, but hesitate when they see you becoming extraordinary. They praise your potential, yet somehow every piece of advice they offer leads you towards safety instead of greatness. This is not accidental. A person who secretly envies you has no desire to destroy you dramatically. Their objective is far more subtle. They simply want to ensure that you never rise high enough to make them confront their own limitations. Envy is one of the oldest emotions in human history because it attacks the ego directly. When someone witnesses another person's growth, success becomes a mirror. Instead of seeing your achievements, they see their own excuses. Your discipline reminds them of their laziness. Your confidence exposes their insecurity. Your courage highlights their fear. Rather than improving themselves, many people choose the easier path. They quietly hope your journey slows down. Notice how certain individuals react when you share an ambitious goal. Genuine supporters become curious. They ask questions. They become excited about the possibilities. Secret competitors often respond differently. Their first instinct is not encouragement, but caution. They immediately list obstacles, risks, and reasons why your plan may fail. They disguise their fear as wisdom. They say they are simply trying to protect you, but what they are really protecting is the balance that keeps both of you on the same level. The remarkable thing about hidden envy is that it rarely appears during your failures. When you are struggling, these people seem incredibly loyal. They comfort you, spend time with you, and offer endless sympathy. Why? Because your failure does not threaten their identity. It reassures them. It confirms the story they have been telling themselves that success is difficult, unfair, or impossible. But the moment your life begins to improve, something changes. Their enthusiasm fades. Conversations become shorter. Compliments become forced. Suddenly, they are too busy to celebrate with you. Human beings often reveal their true emotions, not by what they say, but by what they cannot fake. A smile can be rehearsed. A compliment can be memorized. But genuine happiness or for another person's success cannot be manufactured for long. Eventually, the mask slips. Sometimes hidden envy appears in the form of subtle comparisons. They remind you of someone who achieved more than you. They casually mention another person's accomplishments immediately after acknowledging yours. They reduce your victories by calling them luck, timing, or coincidence. They never attack you directly because direct attacks expose insecurity. Instead, they slowly diminish your confidence, one conversation at a time. This is why emotionally intelligent people listen less to words and more to patterns. A single conversation means very little. A repeated pattern tells the truth. Does this person consistently become uncomfortable whenever you receive recognition? Do they disappear when opportunities appear in your life? Do they seem strangely energized whenever you experience setbacks? Patterns expose motives that language tries to hide. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that everyone wants to see them succeed. It is a comforting belief, but comfort has never been a reliable guide to reality. Every promotion, every achievement, every improvement you make changes the invisible hierarchy within your social circle. Some people celebrate your rise because they measure life through inspiration. Others resent your rise because they measure life through comparison. The difference between these two mindsets determines who deserves a permanent place in your life. Never confuse familiarity with loyalty. Someone can know you for 20 years and still secretly compete with you every single day. Likewise, a person you met 6 months ago may genuinely celebrate your victories because they possess abundance rather than scarcity in their thinking. Time reveals habits, but character reveals intentions. The wisest individuals rarely waste energy confronting hidden envy. They understand that exposing every secret opponent is unnecessary. Instead, they become selective with information. They stop announcing every plan before it is accomplished. They allow results to speak louder than intentions. Success shared too early often becomes nourishment for another person's silent resentment. Silence, on the other hand, protects momentum. Remember this: the people who truly want to see you win will never fear your growth because they do not measure their worth against yours. They understand that another person's success does not reduce their own possibilities. Learn to recognize the difference because your future depends not only on the opportunities you pursue, but also on the people you allow to walk beside you. There is a strange truth about human nature that most people never notice until it is too late. When you fail, the world often becomes surprisingly compassionate. People call you, check on you, offer advice, and reassure you that everything will be fine. But when you begin to win, when your hard work starts producing results, when your confidence grows, when your life begins moving in a direction others only dream about, you discover a very different side of people. Some become strangely quiet, others become distant. And a few, without saying a single negative word, seem almost relieved whenever your success slows down. This is one of the clearest signs of hidden resentment. Secret enemies celebrate your failures far more than they celebrate your victories. The mistake most people make is believing that applause is the only sign of support. In reality, genuine loyalty is measured not by how people stand beside you during difficult times, but by how sincerely they celebrate your success. Anyone can comfort someone who is losing. Very few can remain genuinely happy when another person begins to surpass them. This is because success changes relationships. Failure keeps everyone equal. Success creates distance. The moment you become more disciplined, more respected, or more accomplished, you unintentionally force others to compare themselves to you. That comparison becomes uncomfortable. Instead of asking themselves how they can improve, Many people silently wish for your progress to stop, not because they hate you personally, but because your growth reminds them of the growth they avoided. Watch carefully what happens after you accomplish something significant. Perhaps you earn a promotion, launch a successful project, improve your health, or receive recognition for years of hard work. Some people will congratulate you with great enthusiasm. Others will offer short, emotionless responses that seem strangely disconnected from the importance of your achievement. They may say, "That's nice," or "good for you," before immediately changing the subject. Their words sound supportive, but their energy reveals something entirely different. Human beings communicate far more through emotion than through language. A person can choose polite words, but controlling genuine emotional reactions is much harder. Hidden disappointment often leaks through subtle expressions, awkward silence, or an obvious lack of excitement. If you learn to observe these moments without becoming emotional yourself, you begin to understand who is truly standing beside you. Then something interesting happens. Imagine that weeks later, you experience a setback. A business deal falls apart. You make a mistake. An opportunity disappears. Suddenly, those same people become incredibly engaged. They ask detailed questions. They want every piece of information. They spend much more time discussing your failure than they ever spent discussing your success. Some even appear unusually energetic during these conversations. They disguise it as concern, but beneath the surface, there is satisfaction. Your setback has restored the balance they secretly desired. This does not always happen consciously. Many people are unaware of their own emotions. They genuinely believe they are being supportive, while hidden envy quietly influences their behavior. Human psychology has an extraordinary ability to disguise uncomfortable emotions as reasonable actions. Someone who envies you rarely admits it, even to themselves. Instead, they convince themselves that your success was simply luck, that you changed, or that you became arrogant. These stories protect their ego from confronting the real source of discomfort. One of the greatest dangers is seeking validation from people who secretly compete with you. Every achievement becomes a test. You hope they will finally recognize your effort, appreciate your discipline, or celebrate your accomplishments. But validation from the wrong audience never arrives. No matter how much you achieve, they simply adjust their expectations. If you succeed once, they call it luck. If you succeed twice, they say you had help. If you continue succeeding, they begin searching for flaws elsewhere. Their objective is not fairness. It is preserving their own self-image. The wise understand this early. They stop measuring success by applause. They recognize that silence from certain people is often more revealing than criticism. Sometimes the absence of celebration tells you everything you need to know about the hidden dynamics within your relationships. History repeatedly shows that extraordinary individuals often faced more resistance after achieving success than before beginning their journey. People admired their dreams when they seemed impossible. They became uncomfortable when those dreams became reality. Dreams inspire, results intimidate. That is why many people encourage ambition in theory, but resist it in practice. There is another subtle behavior worth noticing. Secret enemies often become experts at minimizing victories. If you accomplish something remarkable, they immediately compare it to something greater. If you build a successful career, they point to someone wealthier. If you improve yourself physically, they mention someone stronger. If you gain recognition, they remind you of someone more famous. Their goal is never to appreciate progress. Their goal is to make sure your achievement never feels significant. Do not become bitter when you recognize these patterns. Bitterness gives hidden enemies exactly what they want, your emotional energy. Instead, become observant. Accept that not everyone is capable of celebrating another person's success. Emotional maturity is rarer than intelligence, talent, or ambition. As your life improves, your circle naturally reveals itself. Some relationships become stronger because they were built on genuine respect. Others quietly fade because they were built only on equality, convenience, or comparison. Do not chase the people who disappear when you rise. Let your success perform the work that arguments never could. Remember, the people who truly belong in your life will never fear your light because they understand that another person's victory does not diminish their own. And once you recognize this difference, you stop looking for approval and start paying attention to actions. That awareness will prepare you to recognize an even subtler form of hidden hostility that reveals itself through the smallest everyday behaviors. By now, you may have realized that hidden dislike rarely announces itself with dramatic confrontation. It moves quietly, disguised beneath ordinary interactions that seem too small to matter. Most people spend their lives waiting for obvious betrayal, while completely ignoring the tiny acts of disrespect that slowly reveal another person's true intentions. The greatest manipulators understand that one major insult creates conflict, but 100 small insults create confusion. And confusion is far more useful than open war. Human beings often reveal their deepest attitudes through habits rather than isolated events. A single interruption during a conversation may simply be impatience, but when someone repeatedly interrupts you, talks over your ideas, dismisses your opinions before you've finished speaking, or constantly redirects attention away from you, you are witnessing more than poor manners. You are witnessing a subtle struggle for status. Power has always been connected to perception. The person who controls attention often controls influence. That is why individuals who secretly resent you rarely attack your reputation directly. Instead, they slowly weaken your presence in every interaction. They interrupt your stories before they reach their conclusion. They ignore your suggestions until someone else repeats the exact same idea. They speak louder whenever you begin to receive attention. None of these actions seem serious on their own. Yet together, they reveal a consistent desire to reduce your significance. This is the language of micro-disrespect. It is quiet enough to avoid criticism, but frequent enough to shape how others perceive you. Most people fail to notice it because they evaluate relationships by dramatic moments instead of repeated patterns. The wise do the opposite. They understand that character is revealed through consistency. Consider the person who constantly makes jokes at your expense. Whenever you object, they quickly hide behind humor. "I'm only joking," they say. "You're too sensitive." These phrases are among the oldest forms of psychological manipulation. They allow someone to express disrespect while avoiding responsibility for it. The insult is delivered, but accountability disappears. Humor is powerful because it bypasses defenses. A hidden rival understands this. Instead of openly criticizing your intelligence, appearance, or ambitions, they package criticism as entertainment. If everyone laughs, they gain social approval. If you react, they accuse you of lacking a sense of humor. Either way, they protect themselves while placing you in a defensive position, not as something else. Genuine friends joke with you, but they also protect your dignity. Their humor strengthens the relationship because it is built on mutual respect. Secret enemies use humor differently. Their jokes always seem to target your weaknesses, your failures, or your insecurities. Somehow, you are always the punchline. Eventually, you begin doubting yourself, not because of one cruel comment, but because of hundreds of seemingly harmless remarks. Disrespect also appears through indifference. There are people who never acknowledge your accomplishments unless someone forces them to. You complete an important project. They remain silent. You achieve a personal milestone. They quickly change the subject. You share exciting news. They respond with a single sentence before redirecting the conversation back to themselves. This behavior is rarely accidental. Attention is one of the most valuable forms of respect. By refusing to acknowledge your progress, they attempt to make your achievements feel invisible. Recognition is withheld because recognition increases confidence, and confident people become difficult to control. Another revealing behavior is selective politeness. Observe how someone treats others compared to how they treat you. They remember everyone else's birthdays, but forget yours. They respond quickly to other people's messages, but consistently delay responding to yours. They thank everyone in a group except you. None of these actions alone prove hostility, but repeated together, they create a clear pattern. Respect is rarely expressed through grand gestures. It lives inside ordinary moments. Many people dismiss these behaviors because they fear appearing paranoid. They convince themselves they are imagining things. But awareness is not paranoia. The difference lies in evidence. One incident means little. 10 similar incidents deserve attention. The emotionally intelligent person does not react emotionally to every slight. Instead, they quietly collect patterns until the truth becomes impossible to ignore. There is another reason micro-disrespect is so effective. It slowly reshapes your confidence. Imagine walking through life constantly being interrupted, overlooked, underestimated, or quietly dismissed. Eventually, you begin questioning your own value. You hesitate before speaking. You stop sharing ideas. You become smaller without realizing why. The hidden rival never needed to defeat you directly because they convinced you to reduce yourself voluntarily. This is why self-awareness is such a powerful defense. When your confidence comes from internal discipline rather than external approval, small acts of disrespect lose much of their influence. You stop chasing validation from people who have already decided not to give it. Instead of arguing for respect, You begin protecting your energy. Powerful individuals understand that respect cannot be negotiated. It can only be observed. If someone repeatedly shows you through their behavior that they do not value your presence, believe the behavior instead of the excuses. You do not need dramatic confrontations with every difficult person. Sometimes the strongest response is quiet distance. Your absence often communicates more than your arguments ever could. There is wisdom in becoming less available to those who consistently diminish you, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. Every minute spent seeking acceptance from someone determined to underestimate you is a minute stolen from people who genuinely appreciate your presence. The strongest people in history rarely wasted their lives convincing critics to respect them. They invested that energy into becoming so valuable that disrespect eventually revealed more about the critic than the target. True power is not forcing people to acknowledge your worth. True power is remaining unaffected when they refuse to. As you sharpen your ability to recognize these subtle patterns, you will notice something even more revealing. Those who secretly resent you are not only watching your behavior, they are studying it with remarkable attention, waiting patiently for the moment when that knowledge can serve their own interests. Once you begin recognizing hidden envy, another pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The people who secretly resent you are often the ones who know the most about you. They remember details you forgot mentioning. They notice changes in your routine before your closest friends do. They ask questions that seem harmless, yet over time they accumulate an extraordinary amount of information about your life. At first, this attention feels flattering. You assume they are simply interested in you. But there is a profound difference between someone who studies you because they care and someone who studies you because they are calculating. Throughout history, successful strategists understood one timeless principle. Knowledge creates leverage. The more someone understands your habits, emotions, strengths, and weaknesses, the easier it becomes to predict your behavior. A hidden rival does not always seek to defeat you through force. More often, they seek to understand you well enough that they can influence, outmaneuver, or undermine you when the opportunity appears. This is why you should pay close attention to people who ask many questions but reveal very little about themselves. Every conversation feels strangely one-sided. They know your plans, your fears, your ambitions, and even your frustrations. Yet if you pause and think carefully, you realize you know almost nothing about them. They have mastered the art of gathering information while remaining mysterious themselves. People often mistake curiosity for friendship. Genuine curiosity is balanced. It creates mutual understanding. Both people gradually become known to each other. Hidden curiosity is different. It feels like an interview. Every answer you give becomes another piece in a puzzle they are quietly assembling. They observe not because they admire you, but because they are mapping your behavior. Observe how these individuals react when you speak about your future. They remember every goal you mention. Months later, they casually bring it up. On the surface, it appears thoughtful. Sometimes it is. But in other cases, they are measuring whether you succeeded or failed. They are tracking your progress without contributing to it. The most dangerous observers rarely criticize your dreams immediately. Instead, they wait. Patience is one of their greatest weapons. They know that every person eventually experiences moments of doubt, stress, or disappointment. When that moment arrives, they already possess the information needed to influence your decisions. Imagine telling someone about an insecurity early in your relationship. Perhaps you fear public speaking, worry about financial stability, or struggle with self-confidence. At the time, they respond with kindness. Years later, during a disagreement, that same insecurity suddenly becomes part of their argument. Information that once felt safe becomes a weapon. The memory you shared in trust becomes leverage during conflict. This is why emotional intelligence requires discernment. Not everyone deserves complete access to your inner world. Modern culture often celebrates total openness, encouraging people to reveal everything immediately. But wisdom teaches something different. Trust should grow slowly, earned through consistent character, rather than charming conversations. Notice another behavior. Hidden rivals pay attention to your routines. They know when you are most productive, who influences your decisions, what motivates you, and what distracts you. They notice the people you admire and the people you avoid. While genuine supporters use this knowledge to encourage your growth, secret competitors quietly store it for future advantage. There is an old strategic principle that remains true today. Never underestimate the power of observation. Before people attempt to influence you, they first seek to understand you. Observation always comes before manipulation. Social media has made this easier than ever. Many people reveal their emotions, locations, achievements, disappointments, and future plans every single day. They unknowingly create a detailed psychological profile of themselves for anyone willing to pay attention. Not everyone who watches your life is cheering for your success. Some are simply collecting information. This does not mean you should become suspicious of everyone around you. Constant suspicion creates isolation, and isolation weakens judgment. Instead, cultivate selective awareness. Ask yourself a simple question. Does this person use what they learn about me to strengthen me or to benefit themselves? The answer usually appears through actions rather than words. A true ally remembers your goals because they encourage you to pursue them. They remind you of your potential during moments of doubt. A hidden rival remembers your weaknesses because they are waiting for the right moment to exploit them. The information may be identical, but the intention is completely different. One of the most valuable habits you can develop is learning the discipline of strategic silence. Not every victory needs to be announced. Not every idea requires public discussion. Not every plan becomes stronger after receiving other people's opinions. Some ambitions grow best in private, protected from unnecessary attention until they become reality. Powerful individuals throughout history often revealed their accomplishments only after they were secure. They understood that unfinished plans attract unnecessary interference. Every goal shared too early invites opinions, comparisons, doubts, and sometimes hidden resistance from people who have no intention of helping. This does not mean becoming secretive out of fear. It means becoming intentional. There is strength in allowing your actions to speak before your words do. The less predictable you become, the more difficult it becomes for others to manipulate your path. Remember that observation works both ways. While others may be studying you, you should also be studying them, not to imitate their behavior, but to understand their character. Observe how they respond to pressure, success, conflict, and responsibility. Watch what they repeatedly do instead of what they repeatedly promise. The greatest advantage in life does not belong to the loudest person or the most charismatic one. It belongs to the person who understands human nature without becoming controlled by it. When you master the art of quiet observation, you stop giving away unnecessary pieces of yourself and start recognizing intentions long before they become actions. And once you learn to protect your inner world from those who merely collect information, you will also recognize the next tactic hidden enemies rely upon: the subtle art of planting doubt in your mind until you begin questioning your own potential. After learning to recognize hidden observation, you must understand the next strategy that secret enemies rely upon. They know that attacking your abilities directly is often ineffective. A confident person can withstand criticism. A determined person can overcome obstacles. But there is one place where even the strongest individual becomes vulnerable: their own mind. If someone can convince you to question yourself, they no longer need to defeat you. You will begin defeating yourself. The most dangerous manipulation rarely sounds aggressive. It arrives wrapped in concern, kindness, or honesty. The words seem harmless at first. Are you sure this is the right decision? I don't want to see you get hurt. Maybe you're aiming too high. I'm just being realistic. None of these statements are inherently wrong. In fact, genuine friends sometimes ask difficult questions because they sincerely care. The difference is not found in the words themselves, but in the pattern behind them. Pay attention to timing. Hidden rivals almost never plant doubt when you are standing still. They wait until you are about to grow. Just before you launch a new project, just before accepting a major opportunity, just before making a bold decision that could transform your life. It is at these critical moments that discouragement suddenly appears. This timing is not accidental. They understand a psychological truth that many people overlook. Confidence is strongest after success, but it becomes fragile just before action. Every meaningful decision carries uncertainty. Even the most accomplished individuals experience moments of hesitation before taking a leap. Secret enemies understand this vulnerability. They do not need to destroy your dream. They only need to increase your hesitation long enough for fear to take control. Think about how many opportunities disappear, not because people lack talent, but because they delayed. Delay often feels harmless. Maybe next month. Perhaps I need more preparation. I'll wait until everything is perfect. Yet perfection never arrives. The opportunity quietly passes, and life returns to comfort. Hidden discouragement often produces exactly this outcome. One of the cleverest forms of manipulation is presenting fear as wisdom. There are people who have become experts at explaining why something cannot be done. They have endless stories about failure, disappointment, and risk. Whenever you express ambition, they immediately remind you of someone who failed. They rarely mention those who succeeded. Their perspective is carefully selective. This mindset becomes contagious if you spend enough time around it. Human beings naturally absorb the emotional atmosphere surrounding them. If every conversation is filled with doubt, caution, and limitation, eventually your own thinking begins to shrink. You stop asking what is possible and start asking what could go wrong. Without realizing it, someone else's fear becomes your own. There is another phrase you should learn to examine carefully. I'm just being honest. Honesty is valuable. Every successful person needs people willing to tell uncomfortable truths. But honesty without wisdom often becomes cruelty disguised as virtue. A hidden rival may deliver discouraging opinions while claiming complete sincerity. Because they describe themselves as honest, they expect immunity from accountability. The question is not whether someone is honest. The question is whether their honesty consistently moves you toward growth or consistently pulls you back toward fear. Constructive truth challenges you while preserving your belief in your ability to improve. Destructive criticism focuses only on limitations. It leaves you feeling smaller rather than stronger. Observe another revealing pattern. Some individuals never encourage your confidence until after you succeed. Before the achievement, they express uncertainty. After the achievement becomes undeniable, they claim they believed in you all along. This is easy because success rewrites memory. Once the outcome is obvious, everyone wants to appear supportive. Real loyalty is revealed before the result is certain. History repeatedly demonstrates that almost every extraordinary accomplishment was considered unrealistic before it happened. Every innovation, every remarkable career, every meaningful transformation required someone to ignore voices insisting that it was impossible. If every successful person had accepted the doubts surrounding them, progress itself would have stopped. This does not mean rejecting all advice. Wisdom requires listening carefully, but it also requires understanding the source of the advice. Is this person speaking from experience, generosity, and genuine concern? Or are they speaking from unresolved fear, comparison, or hidden insecurity? Two people can offer identical words while carrying completely different intentions. One of the strongest habits you can develop is separating feedback from identity. Accept useful information without allowing someone else's opinion to define your potential. You can improve your strategy without abandoning your vision. You can adjust your methods without surrendering your ambition. Powerful individuals rarely seek universal approval because they understand it cannot exist. Every important decision will attract disagreement. If your confidence depends on everyone else's agreement, you will spend your life waiting instead of acting. There is another subtle tactic hidden rivals use. They repeatedly remind you of your past mistakes. Every conversation somehow circles back to an old failure, an embarrassing moment, or a poor decision. Their goal is not to help you learn from history. Their goal is to convince you that your past defines your future. But psychologically strong people understand that identity is built through present action, not permanent labels. The greatest victories often belong to those who refuse to adopt limiting stories about themselves. They acknowledge mistakes without becoming imprisoned by them. They recognize fear without allowing fear to become authority. Most importantly, they stop outsourcing belief in themselves to people who have never believed in them from the beginning. Protecting your confidence is not arrogance. It is discipline. Your mind is the place where every future achievement begins. If you allow others to fill it with hesitation, even enormous opportunities become invisible. If you guard it carefully, ordinary opportunities become extraordinary results. Remember that those who secretly resent your growth cannot stop you unless they first convince you to stop yourself. Once you understand this, you become far less vulnerable to disguised discouragement and far more committed to trusting disciplined action over borrowed doubt. And when you finally stop allowing other people's opinions to control your emotions, you become ready for the final lesson. The quiet strength of emotional detachment, where true power belongs not to the person who reacts, but to the one who remains in control. After recognizing hidden envy, silent celebration of your failures, subtle disrespect, calculated observation, and psychological manipulation, you arrive at the final lesson. This lesson is not about identifying other people. It is about mastering yourself. Because in the end, the greatest advantage you can possess is not the ability to expose every hidden enemy. It is the ability to remain emotionally unshaken by them. Most people spend their lives reacting. Someone insults them, and they immediately defend themselves. Someone ignores them, and they desperately seek attention. Someone spreads rumors, and they rush to explain their side of the story. Every emotional reaction hands control to the other person. The moment someone can predict your emotions, they begin influencing your decisions. This is why emotional discipline has always been one of the greatest forms of power. High rivals understand something many people never realize. They do not always need to damage your reputation or block your opportunities. Sometimes all they need is to provoke you. A single emotional outburst can undo years of carefully built credibility. One impulsive decision can create consequences that patience would have prevented. They know this, which is why they often create situations designed to pull you out of character. Notice how manipulation usually begins. A sarcastic remark, a subtle insult, being excluded from an important conversation, someone taking credit for your work. These moments are frustrating because they feel unfair. Your first instinct is to react immediately, but this instinct is precisely what must be controlled. Power belongs to the individual who chooses their response instead of allowing circumstances to choose it for them. Emotional detachment does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means creating enough distance between the event and your reaction that your judgment remains clear. Strong emotions narrow perception. Calmness expands it. Imagine a skilled chess player. They do not move a piece simply because their opponent wants them to. Every move serves a larger strategy. Yet, many people approach life differently. They allow strangers, critics, jealous colleagues, and even casual acquaintances to dictate their emotional state. One negative comment ruins their entire day. One act of disrespect dominates their thoughts for weeks. Without realizing it, they have surrendered control of their inner world. The strongest individuals refuse to grant that privilege. They understand that attention is one of the most valuable resources they possess. Every minute spent obsessing over someone else's opinion is a minute no longer invested in personal growth. Hidden enemies often survive because they occupy space in your mind long after they have left the room. There is an interesting paradox in human behavior. The more desperate you appear to prove yourself, the less powerful you seem. The less you seek validation, the more your confidence becomes undeniable. This is why emotionally detached people often appear mysterious. They are not mysterious because they hide everything. They simply refuse to explain themselves to people who have already chosen misunderstandings. Silence is frequently misunderstood as weakness. In reality, silence can become one of the strongest strategic tools available. Not every accusation deserves a response. Not every insult requires revenge. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Some people ask questions not because they seek truth, but because they seek your emotional reaction. When you refuse to provide it, you quietly remove the reward they were hoping to receive. This does not mean allowing injustice to continue without action. There are moments when boundaries must be established and difficult conversations become necessary. But there is a profound difference between responding from clarity and reacting from anger. Anger demands immediate satisfaction. Wisdom chooses the right moment. Observe those who achieve lasting influence. They rarely waste energy on every conflict. They understand that not every battle deserves participation. Some arguments reduce both sides. Some confrontations distract from larger goals. Every unnecessary conflict consumes emotional energy that could have been invested elsewhere. There is another benefit to emotional detachment. It improves observation. When you stop reacting instantly, you begin noticing details that emotional people completely miss. You see contradictions in behavior. You recognize motives hidden beneath words. You identify patterns before they become problems. Calmness sharpens perception. This is why patience often defeats aggression. The impatient person exposes themselves first. They reveal their intentions through frustration, impulsive decisions, and emotional inconsistency. The patient person gathers information quietly, allowing reality to unfold without interference. Eventually, truth reveals itself without force. As your emotional discipline grows, something unexpected begins to happen. The opinions of others gradually lose their power over your identity. Praise no longer intoxicates you, and criticism no longer destroys you. You appreciate encouragement without depending on it. You evaluate criticism without becoming controlled by it. Your confidence shifts from external approval to internal standards. This transformation changes every relationship. People who once manipulated you through guilt discover that guilt no longer works. Those who relied on intimidation discover they cannot provoke you. Those who expected emotional reactions become confused by your calmness. The balance of power changes, not because you attacked them, but because you stopped giving them access to your emotional control. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing they must expose every hidden enemy. In reality, many hidden enemies reveal themselves over time through their own behavior. You do not need to force every mask to fall. Life has a remarkable way of exposing character through repeated actions. Your responsibility is not to uncover every secret intention. Your responsibility is to recognize patterns early enough to protect your peace. As you move through life, remember that success will always attract admiration from some and resentment from others. This is not something to fear. It is simply part of human nature. Your task is not to become obsessed with who secretly dislikes you. Your task is to become so focused on your purpose that hidden hostility becomes background noise rather than the center of your attention. In the end, real power is not found in defeating every opponent. It is found in mastering your own mind so completely that no one's envy, manipulation, criticism, or hidden resentment can determine the direction of your life. And once you reach that level of self-mastery, the people who secretly hated you lose the one thing they were always trying to take from you: control.